My estranged uncle paid off my $300,000 mortgage just to force me into lying for him in court, then threatened to ruin my life when I tried to say no. So I flipped the narrative on him. 2 years ago, I recently graduated from medical school, meaning I'm still broke. Luckily, the government loves me because I'm in residency, so I was able to get a mortgage on a small home near my workplace. Fast forward to 3 weeks ago, I logged into my account to contribute to payments, and was met with my account stating it had been fully paid off. This made no sense, as there was a remaining balance of over $300,000 left to pay. I received a check in the mail of repayment for overpayment of the loan, as well as a post on my account stating that the release of our lien has been in progress since the 11th of April 2022. My brain was scrambling trying to process it. I know I probably should have called someone, but I didn't want to pay it TBH. It was practically every medical student's dream come true. I was just hoping that somehow the universe was covering it for me. I was fast asleep at 3 a.m. when I got the call. It was a number I didn't recognize. Usually I wouldn't pick up, but with the whole mortgage thing, I needed answers. As soon as I swiped right on the little caller icon, they hung up. Then my phone dinged with a text notification. Apparently it was my uncle-in-law, who I'd never properly met. We texted back and forth a bit, which was mainly just me trying to verify his identity. After sending a family photo from when I was a baby with his face and mine circled, a selfie of him and my dad, his license and passport, I finally believed him. That's when Tommy made the confession. With my dad's help, he logged into my portal and paid off the mortgage. But his favor wasn't selfless. Far from it, actually. You see, he wanted me to testify for him in court as an alibi, and since I hadn't seen him since I was a baby, I'd be lying under oath. He told me I was the perfect candidate because I was due to be a doctor, and the jury would automatically trust me. I could barely follow what he was saying, but managed to ask what exactly he needed an alibi for. There was a student in his 10th grade class who was very obviously a little loopy and got picked on for it. And now she was targeting my uncle, saying he had picked her up after school and done stuff to her, which is where I came in. He basically wanted me to say I was very sick that day, which is why my uncle didn't come into school and teach. My thumbs danced over the screen. I didn't even know where to start. Everything in me was shouting that it was a setup, but at the time, he seemed so convincing. He gave me a sob story about how easy it is to ruin a man's life now, which was followed by an in-detail paragraph of their argument about how loopy the student was, how she not only had ADHD and autism, but also narcolepsy. And I guess he was able to pick up on my skepticism, because he finished off by threatening take the payment back, and I'd be left to drown in debt once more. In that moment, I had a decision to make, and to my foggy-headed, overworked, burnt-out 25-year-old self, it seemed legit. So I agreed. Thankfully, there weren't too many law-based procedures I had to go through. And honestly, the fact that everyone was thanking me all the time really made me feel like I was doing the right thing, like I was helping bring justice to the world. Then came the hearing. I felt confident, and was just waiting for the whole thing to be over so I could go back to work. But from the second the prosecutor started talking, I knew I had made a mistake. She didn't pace. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't perform. She just opened a folder and started laying out facts like puzzle pieces. There was an intimate screenshot text sent from Tommy that night. A janitor testifies seeing Tommy and the girl talking near a stairwell after hours. Search history on Tommy's laptop includes, can students lie in court, mandatory reporting laws, etc. My chest was tight and hammering. At the end, it was determined that my uncle was innocent. The second the word innocent left the judge's mouth, the girl broke down in tears. It was the kind of crying that makes people uncomfortable, that echoes off walls, that makes jurors look down at their feet, and the bailiff suddenly forgets how to stand still. And for one terrifying second, she looked straight at me. At that moment, I knew I had made the wrong decision. I pressed my tongue to the roof of my mouth to stop myself from crying. No amount of money was worth a predator walking the streets as a free man. Not even my own uncle. I knew I had to do whatever it takes to fix my mistake and make Tommy pay the price. The next few days at the hospital were a blur. I went through the motions, checking vitals, ordering tests, presenting to attendings, but I wasn't really there. My mind kept replaying that girl's face, her crying, the evidence the prosecutor had presented. One of the senior residents asked if I was okay after I blanked during a presentation. I blamed it on lack of sleep, which wasn't entirely untrue. I hadn't slept properly since the trial. About a week after the hearing, Tommy showed up at my house unannounced. I was just getting home from a 12-hour shift and found him sitting on my front porch with a bottle of expensive whiskey. There he is, the man of the hour. Tommy stood up, arms wide for a hug. I awkwardly accepted the hug, trying not to show how uncomfortable I felt. He followed me inside, already pouring whiskey into glasses he must have brought himself. I didn't even own whiskey glasses. We never got to properly celebrate, he said, handing me a glass. To family helping family. I took the smallest sip possible while Tommy downed half his glass in one go. He made himself comfortable on my couch, putting his feet up on my coffee table like he owned the place, which, in a way, he kind of did. So, how's it feel, being debt-free at your age? Pretty sweet, right? I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Tommy didn't seem to notice my discomfort. He launched into stories about his life, his teaching job, his hobbies. He talked about the trial too, calling the girl that little liar and laughing about how those texts were taken completely out of context. I excused myself to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked tired, yes, but there was something else, a hollowness in my eyes that hadn't been there before. When I came back, Tommy was scrolling through my phone. What are you doing? I grabbed it from him. Just checking out your photos. Wanted to see if you had any good ones of us from the trial. Thought I might frame one for my office. I didn't take any pictures at the trial, I said, checking my phone to see what he'd been looking at. It was open to my contacts. You should get some rest, Tommy. I have an early shift tomorrow. He looked disappointed but stood up. Sure. We'll hang out another time. Hey, I was thinking maybe we could go fishing next weekend. I know this great spot about an hour from here. I made a non-committal noise and practically pushed him toward the door. As he was leaving, he turned back with a strange expression. You know, I'm really glad we reconnected. It's good to have family you can count on, the kind that keeps secrets. He winked and walked to his car. I locked the door and leaned against it, heart pounding. Something about the way he said secrets made my skin crawl. I checked my phone again, scrolling through my recent calls and texts. Nothing seemed off, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Tommy had been up to something. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from an unknown number. There was a voicemail, too, from a woman who identified herself as Detective Linda Reese. She wanted to talk to me about the testimony I'd given in the Thomas Wilkins case. My stomach dropped. I deleted the voicemail and blocked the number, panic rising in my throat. At work, I was even more distracted than before. I mixed up 2 patients' charts and almost prescribed the wrong medication before a nurse caught my mistake. My attending pulled me aside and told me to get it together or go home. I chose to go home, claiming I had a migraine. As I walked to my car in the hospital parking garage, I spotted a familiar figure leaning against my car. It was the girl from the trial. Up close, she looked even younger than I'd thought. She wore an elevated school sweatshirt and had her hair pulled back in a ponytail. You lied, she said simply. No hello, no introduction. I froze, keys in hand. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You weren't sick that day. He wasn't taking care of you. He was with me. Look, I can't talk about this. I'm sorry. I tried to move past her to my car door. My name is Mia, she said. I thought you should know the name of the person whose life you helped ruin. Her words hit me like a slap. I didn't know, didn't you? There were texts. There was evidence. You saw it all and still lied for him. She wasn't crying or yelling. Her calm was somehow worse. Why? What did he give you? I couldn't answer. What could I possibly say? That I sold her out for a house payment? He's done this before, you know. I'm not the first. And now, thanks to you, I won't be the last. She handed me a folded piece of paper. When you're ready to fix what you did, call this number. She walked away, leaving me standing there with the paper in my hand. It had a phone number written on it, nothing else. I shoved it in my pocket and got in my car, hands shaking so badly I could barely put the key in the ignition. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Mia, about Tommy, about the evidence I'd ignored. Around 2 a.m., I pulled out my laptop and started searching. I looked up Tommy's name along with keywords like misconduct and allegations. Nothing came up at first, but then I tried searching news archives from other states. There it was. 10 years ago, Tommy had been a teacher in Nevada. He'd resigned suddenly after personal differences with the administration. The article was vague, but reading between the lines, it was clear something had happened. I kept digging and found a small mention in a local paper about a student's family filing a complaint against a teacher, though no names were given. I was still researching when my phone rang. It was Tommy. Hey buddy, just checking in. You seemed a little off yesterday. It was 3 a.m. Why was he calling me at 3 a.m.? I'm fine, I said. Just tired. Why are you up so late? Oh, you know, grading papers. Teacher life. He laughed. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. That detective might try to contact you. My fluids ran cold. What detective? Some woman from the police department. She's friends with my accuser's family trying to stir up trouble. If she calls you, just don't answer, okay? Or tell her you've said everything you need to say in court. Right, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. No problem. Great. That's what family's for, right? Having each other's backs. There was that word again. Family. Oh, and I was thinking, maybe I could crash at your place for a few days next week. My apartment building is doing some renovations, gonna be noisy as heck. The thought of Tommy in my house made me feel sick. I don't think that's a good idea. My schedule is crazy right now and I'm barely home. Come on, I won't be in your way. I'll even cook dinner. You gotta eat, right? His tone was light, but there was something underneath it. Something insistent. I really can't, Tommy. Sorry. There was a pause. You know, I was talking to my lawyer yesterday about your house. Interesting thing about gifts that large. They can be rescinded under certain circumstances. Legal term is unjust enrichment or something like that. The threat was clear. Are you saying you'd take back the house if I don't let you stay with me? No, of course not. Tommy laughed, but it sounded forced. Just making conversation. Anyway, think about the spare room, okay? I'd really appreciate it. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling trapped. Tommy wasn't just asking for a place to stay. He was establishing control, making sure I knew he could take everything away if I didn't cooperate. The next day, I pulled the piece of paper Mia had given me out of my pocket. I stared at the number for a long time before finally dialing it. A woman answered on the second ring. This is Barbara Wilson. Hi, my name is, I'm the doctor who testified in Tommy Wilkins' case. I couldn't bring myself to give my name. Yes, I know who you are. Her voice was cool but not hostile. Mia said you might call. I think I made a mistake, I said, the words tumbling out. The testimony I gave wasn't true. Tommy paid off my mortgage to get me to lie for him. There was a long silence. That's a serious admission. Are you willing to go on record with this? I don't know. I could lose my medical license. I could go to prison for perjury. Yes, you could, she agreed. But more girls could get hurt if you don't come forward. She was right, of course. But the thought of throwing away everything I'd worked for was terrifying. Can I think about it? Don't think too long. And don't tell Wilkins you called me. She gave me her email address and hung up. I went to work that day feeling like I was walking through quicksand. Every decision felt impossible. If I came clean, I'd lose everything. My career, my freedom, my house. If I stayed silent, I'd be complicit in whatever Tommy did next. During my lunch break, I got a text from Tommy with a picture of him standing in front of my house. Stopped by to drop off a thank you gift. Used my key to leave it inside. Hope that's okay. I never gave Tommy a key to my house. The realization that he had somehow gotten one sent a chill down my spine. I left work early, telling my attending I was still feeling sick. When I got home, I found a bottle of wine on my kitchen counter with a note. To my favorite nephew, family forever. I checked all the rooms, half expecting to find Tommy still there, but the house was empty. Still, knowing he had been inside, touching my things, maybe going through my personal stuff, it made me feel violated. I changed all the locks that evening. The locksmith gave me a funny look when I insisted on having it done immediately, but I didn't care. I needed to feel safe in my own home. That night, Tommy called again. Hey, did you get my gift? Yes, thanks. How did you get into my house? Oh, I had a key made that day I was over. Hope you don't mind. Thought it might be handy if you ever locked yourself out or something. I took a deep breath. Actually, I do mind. I changed the locks today. There was a pause. Wow, that's kind of hurtful, to be honest. I thought we were closer than that. We're not close, Tommy. I barely know you. I paid off your house, he said, his voice hardening. I think that makes us pretty darn close. About that, I said, gathering my courage. I've been thinking. I want to pay you back. I can't take that kind of money. Tommy laughed, but there was no humor in it. Pay me back? On a resident's salary? That would take you decades. I'll figure something out. I can refinance. This is about the trial, isn't it? You're feeling guilty. Did that detective contact you? Or was it the girl? No one contacted me, I lied. I just don't feel right about it. Well, too bad. The money was a gift. You can't give it back. His voice turned threatening. And if you're thinking about changing your story, remember that you committed perjury. That's a felony. You'd lose your medical license. Everything you've worked for, gone. He hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling like the walls were closing in. Tommy had me trapped, and he knew it. The next day, I got another call from Detective Reese. This time, I answered. Dr. Morgan, this is Detective Linda Reese. I'd like to talk to you about your testimony in the Wilkins case. I have nothing to say, I replied automatically. Tommy's threats fresh in my mind. I think you do, she said calmly. We have evidence that Thomas Wilkins paid off your mortgage in exchange for your testimony. That's witness tampering, Dr. Morgan, and perjury on your part. My heart pounded. What evidence? Bank records showing the transfer from an offshore account linked to Wilkins. Text messages between you two discussing the arrangement. I realized she was being strategic with her evidence. I hadn't met with Tommy before the trial. The only time I'd seen him in person was at the courthouse and when he came to my house after. That's not accurate. I never met with him before the trial. So you admit to the payment and the false testimony? I realized too late that she'd tricked me. I didn't say that. I'm not saying anything else without a lawyer. Smart move, she said. But just so you know, we're building a case against Wilkins for witness tampering and rope of a minor. If you come forward voluntarily, it would look a lot better for you than if we have to come to you with charges. After she hung up, I sat down and put my head in my hands. Everything was falling apart. I considered calling Tommy, confronting him about the detective's claims, but something stopped me. What if he was dangerous? What if he did more than just threaten to take back the house? I decided to call Barbara Wilson instead. She answered immediately. I want to come clean, I said without preamble, but I need to know what will happen to me. I can't make any promises, she said, but if you cooperate fully, testify against Wilkins, I can talk to the DA about immunity or a reduced charge. Will I lose my medical license? That's not up to me, but I would think coming forward voluntarily would count for something with the medical board. It wasn't much, but it was something. Okay, I'll do it. We arranged to meet at her office the next day. I spent the night gathering evidence, screenshots of all my conversations with Tommy, bank statements showing the mortgage payoff, everything I could think of that would help build a case against him. As I was getting ready to leave for the meeting the next morning, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Tommy standing there, looking agitated. I froze, not sure what to do. I know you're in there, he called through the door. Your car's in the driveway. Open up. We need to talk. I didn't move, barely even breathed. Fine, have it your way. I heard a key in the lock and panicked. Had he somehow gotten a copy of my new key already? The door didn't open though. The key didn't fit. Tommy cursed loudly and pounded on the door. What the heck? Did you change the locks? Open this door right now. I backed away from the door, phone in hand, ready to call 911. Tommy kept pounding and yelling for a few minutes, then suddenly went quiet. I crept back to the peephole and saw he was on his phone, talking angrily to someone. A moment later, my own phone rang. It was my dad. Hey, what's going on? He asked. sounding confused. Tommy says you changed your locks and won't let him in. He's pretty upset. Dad, don't listen to him. Tommy's not who you think he is. What are you talking about? He's family. He paid off your house for God's sake. He paid it off so I would lie for him in court. He's been accused of inappropriate behavior with a student, and I think it's true. There was a long silence. That's a serious accusation. I know, and I'm about to go to the police with it. I just wanted you to know. Another pause. Are you sure about this? Once you go to the police, there's no going back. I'm sure, Dad. I made a terrible mistake, and I need to fix it. I heard my dad sigh. Okay. I trust your judgment. Do what you need to do. And I'm sorry if I put you in this position by connecting you with Tommy. It's not your fault. You didn't know. After hanging up, I peeked through the peephole again. Tommy was still outside, pacing back and forth on my porch. I couldn't leave with him there. I texted Barbara that I might be late and explained the situation. 20 minutes later, a police car pulled up in front of my house. Tommy immediately put on a friendly face and started talking to the officer. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but after a few minutes, the officer approached my door and knocked. Sir, this is Officer James Taylor. Your uncle says he's locked out and just needs to get some belongings he left inside. I opened the door just enough to talk to the officer, keeping the chain on. Officer, that man is not locked out. He doesn't live here. This is my house, and he's harassing me. Tommy stepped forward. That's ridiculous. I paid for this house. Show him the deed. It probably has my name on it somewhere. The mortgage was paid off recently, I admitted to the officer, but the house is in my name only, and I'm on my way to meet with Barbara Wilson about this man's lawbreaker behavior. The officer's expression changed at the mention of Barbara's name. Barbara Wilson from the DA's office? I nodded. Tommy's face went pale. Sir, the officer said to Tommy, I'm going to have to ask you to leave this property immediately. This is bullpoop, Tommy muttered, but he backed away. This isn't over, he called to me as he walked to his car. You have no idea what you're getting into. The officer waited until Tommy drove away, then turned to me. Do you want to file a report for harassment? Not right now. I really need to get to my meeting with Ms. Wilson. He nodded. I'll follow you to make sure he doesn't try to follow you. True to his word, the officer followed me all the way to Barbara's office. I thanked him before heading inside, feeling slightly safer knowing Tommy hadn't followed me. Barbara was waiting with Detective Reese. For the next 3 hours, I told them everything. How Tommy had paid off my mortgage, how he'd pressured me to testify, the threats he'd made afterward. I showed them all the evidence I'd gathered. This is very helpful, Detective Reese said when I finished. But we'll need you to wear a wire. A wire? Like in the movies? Similar, yes. We need to get Wilkins on record threatening you or admitting to the payment scheme. The thought terrified me. What if he gets violent? We'll have officers nearby, Barbara assured me. Your safety is a priority. I wasn't convinced, but I agreed anyway. What choice did I have? I'd already come this far. They set up the sting for the following day. I was to call Tommy, tell him I was reconsidering my statement to the police, and ask to meet at a coffee shop to discuss it. The wire was uncomfortable under my shirt, and I was sweating despite the air conditioning in the car. Tommy agreed to meet immediately. He sounded relieved, which made me even more nervous. What if he saw through my act? The coffee shop was busy, which was good. Plenty of witnesses if things went wrong. I spotted 2 plainclothes officers at different tables when I walked in. Tommy was already there, nursing a coffee. I was beginning to think you'd gone completely off the deep end, he said as I sat down. Calling the cops on family? That's low. I panicked, I said, trying to sound apologetic. You were pounding on my door, yelling, because you changed the locks. After everything I've done for you, that's what I wanted to talk about. What exactly do you expect from me in return for paying off my mortgage? Because it seems like the expectations keep changing. Tommy leaned forward. I expect loyalty. I expect you to have my back, like I had yours. That detective is trying to build a case against me, and I need to know you're not going to flip. I already testified for you. What more do you want? I want you to tell that detective you stand by your testimony, that you were sick that day, and I was with you the whole time, and I want you to let me stay at your place for a while, just until things cool down. And if I don't? Tommy's friendly facade dropped. Then I'll tell everyone you lied under oath. I'll go to the medical board. I'll sue you for the money. I'll make sure you lose everything. You'd be admitting you paid me to lie. That's an offense. It would be your word against mine. And who do you think they'll believe? The upstanding teacher with a spotless record, or the young doctor who committed perjury to get his mortgage paid off? I felt sick. You don't have a spotless record though, do you? What about Nevada? Why did you really leave that school? Tommy's face hardened. Who have you been talking to? No one. I just did some research. Well, you should be more careful about the accusations you throw around. That situation was completely different. The girl was troubled, making things up for attention, just like Mia. Mia doesn't seem troubled to me. She seems like a kid who was taken advantage of by her teacher. Tommy slammed his hand on the table, making me jump. You don't know what you're talking about. You weren't there. No, but you just admitted you were with her, not me that day. I saw the realization dawn on his face that he'd slipped up. It's over, Tommy. I'm going to tell the truth. He stood up suddenly. You ungrateful little poop. After everything I did for you, you didn't do anything for me. You tried to buy my integrity, and I'm not selling. Tommy lunged across the table at me, but before he could reach me, the 2 plainclothes officers were there, grabbing his arms and identifying themselves as police. Tommy struggled and shouted as they handcuffed him, causing a scene in the coffee shop. Everyone was staring as they led him out. Detective Reese appeared at my side. You did good. We got everything we needed. I nodded, still shaking from the confrontation. What happens now? Now we build our case. With your testimony and the recording, we have enough to charge him with witness tampering and perjury. And with you recanting your testimony, we can can reopen the case against him for rope. And what about me? Will I be charged? That's up to the DA, but Barbara seems inclined to offer you immunity in exchange for your cooperation. Your coming forward voluntarily counts for a lot. It wasn't over yet. I still had to formally recant my testimony, potentially testify against Tommy, and face the medical board. But for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt like I could breathe again. I'd made a terrible mistake, but I was finally doing something to fix it. As I walked out of the coffee shop, my phone buzzed with a text from my dad. Just heard Tommy was apprehended. Are you okay? I texted back. I'm okay. It's a long story, but I'm doing the right thing now. His response came quickly. That's all that matters. We'll get through this together. I looked up at the sky, feeling the weight of guilt lifting slightly from my shoulders. I had a long road ahead, but at least I was on the right path now. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mia's face. I kept replaying Tommy's threats in my head, wondering if I'd made the right choice. Around 5 a.m., I gave up trying to sleep and just sat on my couch, scrolling through news articles about similar cases. Most of them ended badly for the victims. The system was stacked against them. The next day was a blur of meetings with Barbara, Detective Reese, and a lawyer they'd recommended. I formally recanted my testimony in a sworn statement, detailing exactly how Tommy had paid off my mortgage in exchange for lying under oath. It felt both terrifying and liberating to finally tell the truth. What happens to my house? I asked Barbara after signing the statement. That's complicated, she admitted. The money used to pay off your mortgage is evidence in a lawbreaker case now. There will likely be a freeze on any attempts to sell or refinance until the case is resolved. Great. So I was still living in a house that Tommy had essentially bought, even though he was now in prison awaiting bail. It felt tainted somehow, like he was still there, watching me. Tommy's bail hearing was set for the following week. Barbara warned me he'd probably get out. First-time offenders for non-violent crimes usually did. The thought of him walking around free, possibly coming after me, made my skin crawl. We can get a restraining order, Detective Reese suggested, and I'd recommend installing security cameras at your house. I took her advice, spending money I didn't really have on a decent security system. I also told the hospital security about the situation, showing them Tommy's picture and asking them to call police if he showed up. 3 days after Tommy's apprehension, my dad called. Your mom and I have been talking, he said, sounding uncomfortable. We want to help with the mortgage situation. Dad, you can't afford to pay off my mortgage, I said, feeling guilty that they were even considering it. Not all of it, no, but we could help with refinancing. We have some savings, and your sister's almost done with college. I was touched, but shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. I appreciate it, but this is my mess. I'll figure it out. It's not all your mess, he insisted. I'm the one who reconnected you with Tommy. I had no idea what he was really like, but still, I feel responsible. We went back and forth for a while before agreeing to talk about it more once the legal situation was clearer. After hanging up, I felt a weird mix of gratitude and guilt. My parents were willing to sacrifice their retirement savings to help me, all because I'd made a terrible decision. The day before Tommy's bail hearing, I got a call from Mia. I was surprised she had my number, but then remembered Tommy had been scrolling through my contacts that night at my house. He must have sent her my information. I heard what you did, she said without preamble. Thank you. Don't thank me, I replied, feeling awkward. I should have done it from the beginning. I'm sorry I didn't believe you, but you believe me now. That matters. She paused. They want me to testify again. I'm scared. I know. I'm scared too. It felt strange to admit that to a teenager, but it was true. But we're doing the right thing. Did he threaten you too, when you said you were going to tell the truth? Yeah, he did. Me too. He said no one would believe me because I'm just a crazy kid. Her voice cracked slightly. Sometimes I think maybe he's right. He's not, I said firmly. I'm a doctor, remember? I know the difference between someone with ADHD or autism and someone who's lying. You're not crazy, Mia. You're brave. She was quiet for a moment. The other girl from Nevada is going to testify too. Her name is Jordan. She's in college now. That caught me by surprise. They found her? She found them, actually. She saw Tommy's apprehension in the news and contacted Detective Linda. That explained why Tommy had been so nervous about my research into Nevada. There was an actual victim there, not just rumors. Tommy got bail, as expected. $50,000, which he posted immediately. Barbara called to warn me, and I doubled my security precautions. I started having friends stay over, claiming I just wanted company, not admitting I was too scared to be alone. A week after Tommy's release, I was leaving the hospital after a night shift when I spotted him leaning against my car. My heart jumped into my throat. I froze, wondering if I should go back inside and call security. Before I could decide, Tommy spotted me and waved casually, like we were old friends meeting for coffee. Don't worry, I'm not here to cause trouble, he called out. Just want to talk. I glanced around. The parking garage was fairly empty at 6 a.m., but there were a few other doctors and nurses walking to their cars. I wasn't completely alone. I have nothing to say to you, I replied, walking cautiously toward my car. And you're violating your bail conditions by contacting me. Tommy shrugged. Technically, the restraining order says I can't come to your house. Doesn't say anything about the hospital. He was right, and that oversight made me angry at myself for not being more specific when filing the paperwork. What do you want, Tommy? To make you an offer. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Drop the charges, tell them you were confused or pressured by the police, and I'll let you keep the house. No strings attached. I almost laughed. Are you serious? After everything that's happened, you think I'd lie for you again? I think you're practical. I think you know that even with your testimony, there's no guarantee I'll be convicted. These cases are hard to prove. It's still her word against mine. And Jordan's word, I added, watching his face carefully. And the evidence, the texts, the search history. Tommy's smile faltered slightly. Who's Jordan? The girl from Nevada, the one you did this to before. His expression darkened. That beach is lying. Nothing happened in Nevada. Save it for court, I said, moving to unlock my car door. I'm not changing my testimony. Tommy grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in painfully. You have no idea what you're doing. I can make your life heck. Let go of me, I said loudly, hoping to attract attention from the few people in the garage. Everything okay over there? Called a security guard who was walking toward us. Tommy immediately released my arm and stepped back, his face transforming into a friendly smile. Just catching up with my nephew. No problems here. The security guard looked at me questioningly. I nodded slightly to let him know I was okay, and he continued his rounds, though he kept glancing back at us. This isn't over, Tommy said quietly, before walking away. I got in my car with shaking hands and immediately called Detective Reese to report the encounter. She promised to look into modifying the restraining order to include my workplace. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following month. I spent the weeks leading up to it in a state of constant anxiety. Every time my phone rang with an unknown number, my heart raced. Every time I came home to my empty house, I checked all the rooms and closets before I could relax. The hospital administration called me in for a meeting about the situation. I'd been dreading it, sure they were going to fire me or at least suspend me. Instead, they were surprisingly supportive. We've consulted with our legal team, the chief of medicine told me. While perjury is obviously a serious offense, your voluntary recanting and cooperation with authorities shows integrity. We're going to wait for the legal process to play out before making any decisions about your position here. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was better than I'd expected. I thanked him and promised to keep them updated on the case. The day before the hearing, I got a strange text from a number I didn't recognize. Check your mail. No signature, no explanation. I approached my mailbox cautiously, half expecting it to explode or something equally dramatic. Inside was a plain white envelope with no return address. I opened it carefully. It contained a single sheet of paper, a bank statement showing a transfer of $300,000 from an account in the Cayman Islands to my mortgage company. The account holder's name was listed as T. Wilkins Enterprises. Paperclipped to it was a handwritten note. Thought you might need this. J. Jordan. She must have somehow accessed evidence of Tommy's payment. I immediately called Barbara and arranged to drop it off at her office. This is huge, Barbara said, examining the statement. We've been trying to trace the money, but offshore accounts are tricky. This gives us the exact account number. How did she get it? I asked. Barbara shrugged. I didn't ask, and I suggest you don't either. Sometimes it's better not to know. The preliminary hearing was brutal. I had to testify about the payment, the lies, everything. Tommy's lawyer tried to paint me as an opportunist who took the money willingly and was now trying to save my own skin by turning on my benefactor. It was humiliating, but I stuck to the truth. Mia testified too, her voice steady, despite Tommy staring at her the whole time. And then Jordan took the stand, a confident college sophomore who described in detail how Tommy had groomed her when she was 15, how he'd manipulated her into keeping quiet, how her parents had moved the family to another state when they found out. By the end of the hearing, the judge had enough evidence to send the case to trial. Tommy was looking at multiple charges, witness tampering, perjury, rope of a minor, and a few other things I didn't fully understand. As we left the courthouse, Tommy's lawyer approached me. My client is willing to make a deal, he said smoothly. He'll plead guilty to witness tampering if the other charges are dropped. You get to keep the house. No one has to go through a trial. Everyone wins. I looked past him to where Mia and Jordan were standing with their families, two girls whose lives had been forever altered by this man, two girls who had been brave enough to come forward despite knowing how these cases usually went. No deal, I said firmly. I'll take my chances with the trial. The lawyer shrugged. Your call, but think about what you're risking. Your career, your home, your reputation. All for what? You barely know these girls. I know enough, I replied, walking away. The trial was set for 6 months later. In the meantime, I worked with Barbara to negotiate my own plea deal. In exchange for my testimony against Tommy, I would plead guilty to a reduced charge of false statement, with a recommendation for probation and community service. I'd still have to face the medical board, but Barbara thought they'd be lenient given the circumstances. Tommy made one last attempt to intimidate me a week before the trial. He showed up at a coffee shop where I was studying, sitting down across from me like we were meeting for a friendly chat. You know, it's not too late to fix this, he said casually. Tell them you were confused, pressured. I'll make sure you're taken care of. There are cameras in here, I replied, nodding toward the security system in the corner, and I'm recording this conversation on my phone. So unless you want to add witness intimidation to your charges, I suggest you leave. Tommy's face hardened. You ungrateful little poop. I made you. I solved your biggest problem, and this is how you repay me? You didn't solve my problem. You created a much bigger one. I stood up, gathering my books. See you in court. The trial lasted 2 weeks. I testified for almost a full day, describing in excruciating detail how Tommy had paid off my mortgage in exchange for false testimony. Mia and Jordan both testified as well, along with several expert witnesses and the detective who had investigated the case. Tommy took the stand in his own defense, claiming the money was just a gift to family, that he'd never asked me to lie, that the girls were troubled and making things up. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than a day before returning with their verdict. Guilty on all counts. I felt a wave of relief so intense I nearly collapsed. Mia and Jordan hugged each other, crying. Tommy just sat there staring straight ahead, his face blank. At the sentencing hearing a month later, Tommy got 15 years. The judge called his actions a profound betrayal of trust and predatory in the extreme. I watched as they led him away in handcuffs, feeling not satisfaction, but a quiet sense that justice had finally been served. My own legal troubles weren't over, of course. I pleaded guilty to making a false statement and got 2 years probation plus 500 hours of community service. The medical board put me on probation as well, but allowed me to keep my license and continue my residency. As for the house, that was complicated. The money used to pay off the mortgage was deemed proceeds of lawbreaker activity, but since I was a cooperating witness who had made substantial efforts to rectify the situation, the court allowed me to keep the property if I refinanced it and paid back the original amount. My parents helped with the down payment on the new mortgage, despite my protests. "Consider it an investment in your future," my dad said. "Just promise me you'll do background checks on any more long-lost relatives who suddenly want to reconnect." I promised. A year after the trial, I ran into Mia at the hospital. She was volunteering in the pediatric ward, reading to sick kids. "How are you doing?" I asked, genuinely curious. She shrugged. "Better, I guess. Some days are still hard." "Yeah, I get that. I'm applying to colleges next year," she said, a hint of pride in her voice. "Pre-med." I smiled. "You'd make a great doctor. Thanks to you, I might actually get the chance." She hesitated, then added, "You know, for what it's worth, I forgive you. For what happened at the first trial." I shook my head. "You don't need to do that." "I know, but I want to. Holding on to anger just gives him more power, you know." She was wiser at 17 than I had been at 25. I still live in that house, though sometimes I think about selling it and starting fresh somewhere else. But then I remember what it represents now. Not Tommy's manipulation, but my own redemption. My second chance to do the right thing. It wasn't easy. It cost me financially, professionally, emotionally. But when I look in the mirror now, I recognize myself again. And that's worth more than any house.